is done on the layout, or as much as it is for now. There's still a few more little bits I could do to it before we can say it's really finished. So in this episode we're going to look at how I made all this bit. Right, we're now at the stage of the layout build now where we're going to focus on the scenics, and the first section we're going to focus on is just this corner here. Now before we do any of the landscaping or anything like that, the first thing we've got to do is paint and ballast the track. So the paints I'm going to be using are acrylics. Now acrylics are very good paints to use. I use acrylics on all my builds now, and the paint that I'm using for the sleepers, using brown paint with a bit of white just to lighten up the brown, and I've managed to mix this colour up for the sleepers. So this is the paint I'm going to be using for the sleepers, and this is the brown acrylic and the white acrylic just mixed together. For the rail sides I'm going to be using a Revel colour, and it is matte 83. That's the colour I'm going to be using for the rail heads. Well, not the rail heads, the side of the rails. So basically I'll just be painting the side of the rails with this paint. So the first bit I'm going to do, I'm going to paint these sleepers, and I'll do a short segment painting the sleepers, and then the rest of it I'll do as time lapse. Right, so let's get cracking with painting the sleepers. Some water there to clean my brush. I've got my paint there. So what I'll do is on the bit what's open, well, actually I won't do that because I don't know if I'll be keeping up. I don't know if I'll be keeping them sleepers or not. What I'll do along here, literally just want to paint sleepers. Now chances are you'll get a bit of paint on the top of the rails, not to worry. Whereas when the paint is wet, just wipe it off with your finger and it should be fine. Now you will have to do a few coats. Just got to let that bit dry, and I'll crack on with the rest of the sleepers in the time lapse. Right, it's now time to focus on the ballasting now, because I've painted all the track and the sleepers. And the ballast we're going to use is Woodland Scenics medium ballast in grey. Okay, nice bit of ballast. Okay, so it's this ballast we're going to be using. So I'll sprinkle that down onto the track, and to glue it down I'm just using a mixture of watered down PVA with just a little bit of washing up liquid. It's about 50-50 water and glue with a little bit of washing up liquid. And how I'm going to be putting the glue down is I'm going to be using a pipette just to glue down the ballast. But before you glue down the ballast, I'm going to give it a spray down with just normal tap water. Just spray it down. You know, that'll help to keep the ballast down and stop the ballast from coming up. Right, so let's get started. So the first bits we're going to do is just these bits along here. Now you want to take your time with this and try not to use too much. Now you can get like devices, like ballast devices, where you just fill up the ballast loader and then just run it along the track, but I don't have one of them, so I prefer doing it this way anyway. Yeah. Makes it a little bit less neat. Right, so always handy to have a nice little brush. I just want to gently just go along like that. I was tapping the track just then because sometimes the vibration of the tapping is just enough to get the ballast to fall in place. I've now finished ballasting and painting this section of track here, which is in the scenic bit where I'll be working. And I've also, if I pan out, been doing a fair bit off camera. So now at least this side of the layout now has a bit of the back scene. Now I wanted to put this piece of back scene in because the scenics will be leaning off this back bit here and then going down. So I needed to put this bit in. I also put this bit in at the back, and these openings that I've got on the side is so I can get the train, if it gets stuck in the bit there. I've also got this bit here, which will be the backing for the rest of the scenics going that way. Now, the reason why I've done this off of camera is because I wasn't 100% sure how I was going to do all this bit with the back scene. But basically what I used foam board just to do the back scene. It's light enough, it's strong enough, and the other thing I've got to keep in mind, I'm now building this in a rented property, so cutting up a load of like chipboard and stuff like that to make all the back scene is not that much of a good idea. So I opted just to use a bit of foam board. And the other thing you may notice is that there's not much height to this, and the reason being is because when the layout gets put away, it's going to have to go underneath my bed, so I have to think about the height going under the bed. But what I will do is basically I'll do another layer that just sits on top of this, so in theory I can make like a big sort of mountain in the back that would just basically rest on top of this bit on like another bit of foam board. So when I put the layout away underneath the bed, this top bit would just come off, and then that can just go on the front of the layout under the bed. Now the other thing that I've done, that I've posted on my Facebook page, is this tunnel mouth. Now I've been experimenting with craft concrete or craft cement, and basically how I made this, I made a mould up and basically filled the mould with concrete to make this tunnel mouth. And all these little bits here, that's meant to be slate, and basically I was using woodland scenic rock moulds with the concrete as well, and I'll show you my results from them in a minute. But basically all these little bits here is basically just the flashing that you peel off the side of the castings. These are just the flashing. Oh, knocked it over now. So yeah, basically what I've done was the gaps I was in there, because I built gaps into the mould. I glued all these little bits of flashing in there to look a bit like slate. What I've also done is there's a bit of black bin liner that that I've cut strips into and glued it to the back. Now what this does is it hides behind here, so the train comes through like that, and then the bin liner should go back into place like that, and then vice versa, and the bin liner goes back into place. It's a handy tip that I learned off someone else, so I thought I'd implement it on this layout. So my next the next stage now is we're now going to work out where the waterfall is going. So I've temporarily got this here, and basically the next thing I'm going to do is just all this bit, place down where the waterfall is going, and then we can work on the rest. So that's now the base of the waterfall and the riverbed done. I've now just got to wait for all this to dry. Then once all this is dry, I can then start on making the formers for all around here and all the surrounding areas of the waterfall, including all this bit here. So just got to wait for that dry, and I can carry on. Right, now all the base for the waterfall is now all dry, so we can now move on to the next step of making formers to form the landscape, going from the back bit to the track and then from the track to the waterfall. But before we go into that, there's a few things I want to mention first. The first thing is an important thing, and there's a bit of confession time here, because in my last episode with the wiring, I talked about using this, which is called an auto frog. It's called an auto frog, and I said that I use these on some of my points. Now, when I ran a train last night on my layout, this got red hot and started smoking, and I was like, "Well, what's going on here?" And I looked it up, and this layout currently runs on DC, not DCC. These auto frogs, I found out, only run on DCC. Now, I didn't think it would be, I didn't know that they can only just be used on DCC. I thought, the way I was going to be using it was just to change the polarity of the frog, so I didn't think it would be a problem. But basically, what happens by running it on a DC layout, when you're turning up the controller, you're putting more power into this than there should be, which then causes it to burn out and not work. So I just want to make it clear that only use these on DCC layouts. Don't use them on DC, use them on DCC layouts, because they won't work and they will cause a fire if it's on the DC layout. So that's my safety warning and my confession. Right, so the next thing I want to talk about is how I've done this tunnel mouth. And basically all this is concrete, crafting concrete, and I made this mould out of foam board to give me this shape. So yeah, it's quite never tried it before, but I think I'll do a bit more of it, in the future. But that's how I've done that. And the stuff I use for that is this stuff, crafting concrete. Now, word of warning with using this stuff, if you ever did use this stuff on your layout, this weight will be on your layout if you use all this stuff, all this crafting concrete in here. That weight will be on your layout. So that's something that's worth thinking about if you went down this route. But I'll show you what I did out of them. These come from Woodland Scenics mouldings, and I use the concrete to make the castings. And some of the results are pretty good. So I'll be using these on this bit here. But before I can do that, gotta make the formers up to make the landscape. Now, if you have cardboard boxes, never throw them away, because this is what I'm going to be using. I cut out a cardboard box, and that's how I make the formers out of them. So the first bit we're going to do is work out this area. So if I just get a marker, now I roughly want this tunnel mouth to be there. So we just put marker lines there. Just roughly drawn around this. I know where it is. So remove that. Pull over to the side. I've got a marking there, bit of a marking there, and I've marked up from there. So my plan is I'm going to put that there. Okay. So do like a line, sort of like there. So done this line there, and that bit will stick to the back of the tunnel mouth. Doesn't have to be neat. This is purely just to hold the landscape up. So somewhere like that, possibly. Something like that. I just trim off the top. Something along there. Now I'm just going to get a brush with some PVA. This is just normal PVA. I'll just use that to hold it. Right, so we know that's going there. Now the next thing I've got to do is thinking about where these are going to be going. I like to try and put these in so they're halfway just below the track line, so I can then fill them in there. Got to tuck a piece in there. That leaves will stick to them like that. Okay. We'll start that now. I mean, all this will be covered in plaster cloth and paper mache before any scenics go on these bits, but I'm just thinking ahead slightly to where everything's going to fit in. So, sort of something like that. And when I put these rock molds in, there will be gaps, but I can fill them in anyway. See if I can get that a bit closer in. It's just sort of something like that. That's what I do with this piece, because the way it is, I'm going to do some tabs. So just cut some strips of card up, make tabs. Glue the tabs on. If bits like this is probably, with the curve bits, it's probably best using super glue. But I currently don't have any. I use them up on the other bits, so I'm just using PVA the best I can. So it'll be sort of something like that. Right, so that now gives the rock something to stick to. Another useful tool, newspaper. So, green newspaper, keep hold of it and use it as packing material. So I'm just going to pack some bits in there. Nothing too fancy, I'm just ripping bits off, scrunch them up, and just putting them in the gaps. Should offer a bit of support to this bit there. Now the other thing I want to keep in mind is, do I want to have anything in there? For example, something like that. So I've got to take that into account. So thinking maybe I could just put something in there. Give something for some rocks to attach to. Again, tab with some glue. And just tuck it away, just like that. Right, so that's basically the gist of what I'm doing. What I do now is leave that dry, carry on with the rest of it, and then I'll get back to you with all the rest of the formers all done in this side. With all the formers and the main structure in place, you can now see how the landscape is going to go in this part of the layout. Our next job now is to cover all of this landscape in paper mache, ready to be covered with plaster cloth later on as a base for all the scenics. So let's get cracking on with this now. I've left the paper mache to dry overnight, and it's now time to cover the whole area with plaster cloth. So what we're going to be using is, I've got a bowl of water there, got a spray bottle here with some water in it, and I've got these sheets of plaster cloth, which literally is cloth which has been fused with plaster. But basically the same stuff they make a cast with when you break your arm or something like that. Yeah, it's basically the same stuff. So we're just going to cover this bit with this stuff. So how we're going to do this is I'm going to get a piece of plaster cloth and dip it in the water, not too wet. Then go over to where I'm covering, just literally simple as that. If the layout's staying in one spot, then there's nothing really wrong with just having the paper mache as the surface, but I like to do a layer of plaster cloth on top of the paper mache, so it gives it a bit more strength. And the next question is, why do I not just put plaster cloth on first rather than the paper mache? The reason being is because the paper mache is lighter than the plaster cloth. So basically, if I put plaster cloth straight down, it just wouldn't look right. It would just the plaster cloth will just sag into the gaps rather than just be roughly over it, sort of thing, roughly flat. So that's why I put paper mache down first before I put the plaster cloth. So I just do these few bits. Now I put my tablet, which is the camera currently, on a stand. I could do the rest of it and make a bit of a time-lapse clip. I've now finished adding the layers of plaster cloth to this bit of scenery, and as you can see I got a little bit carried away and I decided to add some of the rock faces, well, these rock castings to the layout. These are the concrete rock castings that I showed you earlier. You know, look pretty good. And there's the tunnel mouth that I showed you earlier. So we've got all the rocks go along there. This bit will be where the waterfall will be. So this will just be back rock face, and the waterfall will come just in front of that. There's more rock facing around there. There's a pool there where the water builds up, and then it'll go down to the next layer, and then onto another layer, and underneath the trestle, and then to about there where the river goes. These rock castings, I attached them using some multi-purpose ready mix filler, and I also used some ready mix filler just to fill the gaps. I've also, with the riverbed, I've also lined the riverbed with some ready mix filler as well, to stop any leaks when I put the resin in. Ask me how I know to do that now. when I done the river baseboard on the TT120 layout, the resin started leaking out the bottom, so I thought it might be a good idea just to do a layer of filler, just to try and act as a sealant. Right, well, enough waffle. Next job I've got to do now is I've got to paint all these bits with brown paint, so that when I put the scatter material on, if there's any bits where it hasn't quite taken, you'll just see the brown paint come through rather than this white of the plaster cloth. Right, so let's get cracking. With all the ground cover painted on, it's now time to start work on the scenics. I've also detailed the rock work as well by dry brushing some blue paint into the rocks to suggest there's a slight bit of slate in the rock work. I've also dry brushed some green in some of the bits of rock work to suggest that that's places where water could be running down when it's like raining or a bit of moss growing. Now moving over to what will be a future development. This tube that's coming out of the baseboard with the 2 wires, I'll be soldering a bulb to the end of this, ready to go into a cottage that I'm going to be placing on that area. This cottage come from a free Metcalf kit what come from a Railway Modeller magazine. I've been trying to find a use for it, so this seems like a perfect place to use this cottage. There'll be a garden at the front with possibly some grow patches, and there'll be a small garden at the back along with a small crossing just at the front. I'm planning to use this cottage as the station master's cottage for this area, and maybe have a fencing all the way along the top. I'm now working on the ground coverage for this part of the layout. This is where the scene really transforms. So I'm just going to leave you with this time-lapse video so you can see the transformation. so that just about wraps up this video, guys. I hope you all enjoyed the video as much as I enjoyed making this bit of the layout. This is probably the best bit of modelling I've done, and I really enjoyed it, and I think I outdone myself a bit. So there's still a few little bits I can do to this, like some little cosmetic bits, like some flowers and stuff like that, but that's stuff that could be done at a later date. And also I've got to do the continuation of the river at the top, and then the waterfall at the front, so the river at the top will continue to the waterfall at the front, and then down the stream here to the end of the baseboard. I've also done the trestle bridge. The trestle bridge I've done off of camera because I wasn't 100% sure how I was doing it myself, but what I do a small little video on how I've done all this at a later date. You know, I've got like ballast either side as sort of like embutments. You know, I wasn't 100% sure how I was going to do it, so I thought this was probably the better way of doing it. So yeah, that's all that bit. You know, I'm really happy with it. Really happy with that bit. Right, so the next episode we're going to focus on these two sidings here and this house here, and there'll be a garden here, a little garden at the front, a little crossing there. So basically the next episode will just be focusing just on this rectangle bit there. So that's what we've got to look forward to. So once again, hope you all enjoyed the video, and thank you for watching. And if you could hit the like button and subscribe to the channel, it will really help the channel. And again, thank you for watching. You all take care, and bye bye.